Today is March 25th, but let's talk about what just came out yesterday, last night, which is the one movie I think I have been waiting for a very long time. This has taken me back when kind of the feeling I had when Star Wars was good and you had the anticipation that was building up. And the movie that we are talking about is none other than John Wick Chapter 4. So, Paul, I assume you saw it
Yes,
last night.
I did.
What are your thoughts?
I liked it. I knew because our Chad Stileski says he just basically came out and cryptically said he's going to die in the movie. This is not spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you shouldn't watch.
Well, let's are we going to do a spoiler free or apparently we're not
No,
going
we
to
don't.
do
There's no
spoilers.
point talking about it without spoilers, in my opinion.
Okay, I agree. So if you haven't seen John Wick Chapter 4 yet, you probably don't want to listen to this or watch this.
They let loose a velociraptor on him, and he holds out for 5 or 10 minutes. It's great, but the velociraptor catches up and kills him.
Well, you brought up a great point. Let's the cat's out of the bag already, which our good friend Steve Tapia would appreciate. So Steve, if you ever watch this, that's a reference to you, buddy. So at the end, John Wick dies. However, I almost stayed through the credits. I stayed partially. And so I'm not sure if you're aware of this. There is a post-credit scene that if all you have to do is Google it. I have not looked.
I didn't know.
So I don't know what's in the post-credit scene. I do intend to see it again, as I am an A-list member through AMC. They're not a sponsor, but I highly recommend AMC Theaters, the A-list. You can see 3 movies a week in any format, and it's like $21 a month, $22 a month. So basically, for me, it costs to go see it in a digital theater or an IMAX screen. It costs $21 for one ticket. So for $1 more, you can see 12 movies a month. But anyways, just to move away from that. So I will see it again sometime, probably this weekend. But he does die, so I'm wondering what's in the post-credit scene. But I'm wondering if you noticed one of the things that gave us a clue of what could potentially happen if there is a John Wick Chapter 5.
I did not notice. Go ahead.
So my memory is a little fuzzy, but at the end when they were at his gravestone, so to speak, the dog that was with oh shoot, now I'm forgetting their names.
Winston and
Lawrence Fishburne's character.
the King.
Yeah. That was the Rottweiler, and I believe that was John Wick's Rottweiler.
I don't think it was a Rottweiler. It was a pit bull. Go ahead. Who's counting?
So it was not John Wick's dog.
I think it was. I was not a Rottweiler. I
Okay.
had a Rottweiler. Yeah.
I can't remember his dog that he ended up adopting. Was that a pit bull or a Rottweiler?
Yeah, pit bull.
Okay. So there was a dog at the end that was not in the rest of the movie, which I kept waiting for his dog to show up. And there are dogs. That's a kind of a recurring theme in the John Wick movies. There's a dog in the movie. Plays a great role. But if you noticed, they did a cutaway to the dog, and he looked off camera, or off into the distance. He was not looking at the grave, and he was not looking at Ian McShane or Lawrence Fishburne. So to me, that's a clue that there was something else that maybe John Wick is not in there, and maybe he did not die. And then also I read that from the director, they said that they wanted to take a break from John Wick, but depending on the success of this movie, that they would probably, it's like, that's out of my hands, but if the studio wants to make another one, obviously they probably will if it makes money.
John Wick, when he's in like the retirement home, he's in a wheelchair, and him and Donnie Yen fight each other in the wheelchairs for the their first place in line at the food court.
Well, So let's talk about Donnie Yen for example, for a second. What did you think of his character? Because I know, Paul, you're a big fan of realism, and
Kung Fu and
how, well, when I say realism, uh, our last one of our previous episodes, we were talking about zombies and how Paul thought that zombies would not be able to run at a very high rate of speed.
correct.
In this movie, Donnie Yen plays another blind assassin.
Character over from Star Wars.
Exactly. Which I've only seen 2 movies with Donnie Yen in it. I know he's a big action star in Hong Kong, but in both
He actually
movies,
could see in real life.
he was blind, and I thought, is he really blind in real life? So the question is, did you find that believable?
You know, I actually debated myself during the movie, and I don't know. I'm gonna fully admit I think it's a little stretchy.
It's a lot stretchy.
Well, you got to remember, for kung fu to work and all these things to work, you've got to be in close quarters. You notice John Wick is rarely, or Donnie Yen is rarely out in the open, because I don't care who you are. If I have a M16 with 30 rounds, I'm going to cut you in half. Right?
Exactly.
There's nowhere to run, and that's we proved that in Japan, right? When we first invaded Japan, everyone was like, or the islands, like, oh, they're the best fighters. They got swords. They do karate. We ran to them with our guns, and they shot us with our guns, and we shot them, like the movie The Thin Red Line. But that stuff doesn't work in a war per se, right? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, it has to be like you see. All those things were in a hotel lobbies. There's stuff in the way. There's no direct line of sight, only for a split second. And I'm not blind, and I don't know. And I've heard so many stories either way. Like if I just close my eyes in a room and you step on glass, I'm going to shoot. And that's one thing we do learn in Kung Fu, which you learned in Star Wars. Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
Except for the fact that he's fighting A, John Wick, B, the end when they have the duel.
He knows where he is. He's basically straight ahead of him.
Duck.
John Wick's not going to duck. Let me tell you.
I'm just saying, I did not find it believable at all. However, it did not really deteriorate from my enjoyment of the movie. I kind of accepted it. To me, that if I could have any criticism of the movie itself, it would be that. Because I have a hard time believing that John Wick, who is the man that you send to kill the boogeyman, would be bested or even have his opponent, who, if blind, would even have a fighter's chance.
Well, there's a old joke I tell in Kung Fu.
Or a puncher's chance.
And here's the joke. I'll tell it real quick. There's a blind guy in New York City. He's got a service dog. He's about to walk across a super busy street. As he does, this group of cars comes and it's going to hit him. And this other dude grabs him and pulls him back. Okay. And he goes, "Are you all right? Oh my God, I almost hit you." And the guy goes, "Yeah, I'm okay." And so the blind guy pulls out a piece of a reward for the dog. He goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. That dog almost got you killed. Why are you going to give him a reward?" He goes, "Because when I feed him, I'll know where his mouth is, so I can grab him and kick the shit out of him." Okay? That's how Kung Fu works. We are in close spaces. It doesn't matter if you could see or not. I could fight my sea hang, and he could close his eyes and stop almost every one of my blows.
I don't find it believable, especially when you're talking about guns.
Well, guns are another thing. I'm saying,
because even in their close quarters, if you stand 10 feet away from me, now this is assuming that I know how to shoot with a pistol, which if you've ever shot a pistol, it's still very difficult to do. But I'm pretty sure that I am not a martial artist. Donnie Yen is.
Yeah.
And if he was blind, I'm pretty sure I could take him.
Well, remember,
even with a gun. So I just don't find that believable.
Let me explain to you why. You got to give me things to think about.
No.
Here's the number one thing to think about.
You can't dodge a bullet.
Let me finish. I used to work with a guy who was you know what 3-gun is? That's what Keanu Reeves does. It's a shooting drill with real guns. It's a 9mm shotgun AR-15, right? They have it. So I knew a guy who was like he won some contests here in Tennessee. He's really good, really fast. And I worked with a guy who was in both Gulf Wars, okay? And he was a tanker, and then he was a combat veteran in the other one. And one time they both worked together, and this guy would say, "Oh, I won this," and Don, my friend Don, would say, "When people are shooting back at you, it's a completely different skill set than standing there and shooting somebody."
Of course.
Oh, you could say I could shoot Donnie in. No, you couldn't if he's shooting back.
I'm saying John Wick could have.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
Because I mean, he probably killed 300 plus people in that movie.
But the skill that John Wick has now, I don't know if he could do this in real life because this is a movie. That's my whole point. John Wick is hitting people who are shooting at him. You know how hard that is?
Yes.
Yeah,
However,
every day.
We also know that he's a sniper.
Who?
John Wick.
Yeah. Huh?
So that means to me that he's able to shoot under various degrees of pressure at various skill levels with various weapons. So I just find it, I don't find it believable at all that he would, that a blind man would even have a chance. Now, maybe for the first few seconds, but they had numerous encounters, and I don't find that believable. I also don't believe the fact that he could fall out of a 5-story building and land on a car. And
that part was just like, dude, if you or I or Keanu Reeves in real life fell off his stair, the first stair, and landed on the street, he's done. Okay, I'm done.
During one of the first big action sequences, one of the guys gets thrown down the steps when they're in the I forget the name of the hotel in Japan where they were at.
The Continental.
Yeah, the Continental in Japan. And I just think this is part of what I love about John Wick is they do a lot of real stunts. The stuntman falls down the steps, and all I could think of is, man, that must have hurt in real, for the stuntman to fall down the steps.
Well, remember in real life in Hollywood, you know how many stunt horse riders got killed and messed up in the early days of Hollywood?
Oh,
it was very common for legs broken and their backs, necks. People died on movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, like, think about this. Terminator 2. It's the stupidest stunt, and you probably don't even remember it. When they come out of the Galleria, Robert Patrick catches up with an 18-wheeler, throws the driver out while it's rolling. It's like 10 or 12 feet down. That guy hits the ground and rolls. I'm like, I would have been dead. DOA, dead.
Well, a couple things. One, I don't remember. Do they show him hitting the ground in the same shot?
It's like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it was, sorry, Jesus. It's like, he pulls up and just, that guy. And this is the stunts they used to do in Hollywood. This is,
Now, my limited knowledge of stunts is that usually they go no more than like 10 to 20 miles an hour. Again, I'm not doing it. I'm not.
If the truck is stationary, I ain't jumping out of an 18-wheeler. It's like 10 feet up.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure he has some knee pads on underneath his.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not, but still.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. That's why they have stuff.
Have you seen the movie Hooper with Burt Reynolds?
Yeah, a long time ago.
It's about Hal Needham, who was like one of the most famous stunt guys in Hollywood, and they show all these stunts. There were no CGI. There weren't nothing. These guys, everything you see, they're doing.
Yeah.
Like the scene where they have a Trans Am and they blow up 100-foot. It misses that car by like 5 feet. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There ain't no do-overs there.
Well, that's what's great about old Hollywood from, up until like the late 80s, early 90s, and even into the 90s, but before the advent of like CGI. But let's go back to John Wick for a minute.
Sorry.
Because I just want to, no, there's nothing to be sorry about. I was just trying to maintain the topic here for those viewers. For me, though, I would say, I just want to say this. So that's my only criticism of the movie. For me, this was one of what I love about John Wick is the real stunts. These are like action movies that you would have seen like during the 80s or the 90s. And it's just a lot of fighting, a lot of violence. And to me, this really has the tone and a lot of the same themes of some of my favorite movies, going back to the Clint Eastwood Man with No Name trilogy, and really from this felt really much like a Western. And if you notice, even the opening shot was them riding on a horse, or the opening scene, riding on the horse with the sunset in the desert. There was a lot of Western motifs, the duel at the end, and it felt very reminiscent of the ending of For a Few Dollars More. And so I love the movie. I'll definitely see it again. To me, these are the quintessential action movies of the, well, whatever, of the 2020s and 2010s. But the other thing is, what I also love about the movies, while they have a big budget, it's not that grand in scale. Like these are really kind of smaller movies. You know, that you don't have, while you have some big action set pieces, like where they were fighting in the Arc de Triomphe in Paris and whatnot. You know, they're not that huge where you would expect to have, like, you know, like a $300 million action movie where you have these, like on a giant like in a Transformers movie where you have all the CGI and buildings blowing up, or in Die Hard, which I love Die Hard, no criticism of that, but this feels like a more intimate movie.
The Arc, because Jenna, my wife, and I were talking about that Arc de Triomphe. I said, did you notice when they shot that? They shot that scene at night. So they probably did it like the Matrix Part 2, where there's probably only 5 cars in that circle.
Oh, sure, yeah.
A lot of those cars were CGI.
Of course, yeah.
But and that was an advantage of, I don't know if ever get Jim Cameron on the show. When he shot Terminator, he had to shoot it at night, but that also, he turned a big negative into a positive, because that made the movie more dark and scary, the Terminator at night. The other thing I want to say about John Wick, I know you're a lot younger, it basically, the last 20 an hour in a movie, they just borrowed directly from the Warriors. Okay, they had the woman, the black woman talking. You can only see this on her face.
Yeah, you're yep.
And then they had she's bopping along, going towards the whatever the second, she's telling him where he is, and you guys missed it. And just like the woman, she's dead now. Lynn Thigpen played that role in the Warriors. And so they did that, and she puts the song down to Joe Walsh. Is it Joe Walsh? I can't remember.
No, it was not Joe Walsh. What was the song in that movie?
He was in the movie. No, he had a song in the city in that movie, but the other song, "Nowhere to Hide, Baby, Nowhere to Run." So anyway, that was the song from the movie last night that she plays on the turntable.
They did play "Paint It Black." Was that? It sounded like Blondie. Did Blondie cover that song?
And another movie they borrowed from, you're also young, and I know you've seen it, Taxi Driver, where they're in that apartment in France, and they're on top looking down. I was getting dizzy, dude.
Oh, and the big action scene where he brings in the, well, I don't know what type of rifle it was, but
no, it's like it's not thermite, it's another thing. It's got a name for it. A lot of people at Target, they'll shoot it because it blows things up.
Yes. Now I will say, that was some of the most fantastic. That's one of the greatest action sequences of all time.
I was just like, "Oh my! Is this going to end? Like, is this going?" And
no, it just kept going on, and the cinematography just going above the room and showing it from a top-down view. And it's a lot of it is like one shot, continuous for what seemed like 5 minutes. I know there was some cuts here and there, but that was one of the greatest, you know, set piece or, you know, action sequences I've ever seen. And, you know, my hat's off to that.
Taxi Driver. That's where that was originally done.
Now, I will say, I didn't know how they were going to top it. You know, the scene where they're in downtown Paris, or by the Arc de Triomphe, and you know, they're fighting all out in the traffic. I mean, that's fantastic. I just felt like you know, every action sequence built upon itself. And the climb up the stairs, it felt like a video game in the sense where you get to the top and then you die, and then you kind of you get kicked back to the beginning of the level. That's kind of what it felt like. And so it felt like I'm waiting for the John Wick video game to come out on PlayStation.
Probably. So let me ask you a question. I thought somehow there was some unspoken communication between Donnie Yen and John Wick at the end, where remember Donnie Yen helps him up the stairs,
Yes.
and then at the end of the movie, it's brilliant. I knew instantly what John Wick had done at the very end. I knew it.
Yes.
Okay, and then the guy he's pretty good. He played Pennywise.
Wait, could you repeat that last part because your audio broke up? The guy who
Who's the bad guy of the Marquis? Bill.
Oh,
He played it. He played Pennywise.
okay.
So I knew. So John Wick knew he's got to get shot.
Yes.
That guy in, and he did.
I felt like, now this kind of goes against my theory that I'm not buying that Donnie Yen was that you could get beat by a blind guy, especially shooting pistols. But I felt like he intentionally, although John Wick dies in the end, and I still think it's questionable, he's dead until they realize they can make a lot more money. I felt like he intentionally did not give like a fatal blow, shot to the head for the whole purpose that, John Wick could save his last shot to kill the Marquis.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, somehow because remember the first shot, they each shot each other in the arm.
Yes.
And yeah, I really, yeah. And then Clancy Brown was awesome in there, and who was that heavy German guy? I think that was a fat suit.
It looked like it. You know who it reminded me of was Colin Farrell playing the Penguin. I kept thinking, I was like, is this Colin Farrell as the Penguin?
That's actually pretty good, Steve. Whoever that guy was, he's a really good fighter. He's big. He's probably bigger than me. That guy's got to be 3'6'4", 300 pounds.
But when that guy falls down they knock him over the railing.
There is some, and I was like, what nightclub on earth do the guards have hatchets?
Well, also, what nightclub on earth, when fights like that break out, do the people, the audience, do they keep dancing? Now, they did show them running away at the end, but that's kind of a recurring theme in the John Wick movies. It seems like every movie there's a fight in a nightclub, and nobody seems to pay any attention to that.
I think they're all on drugs, so they don't, is this really happening, bro? Oh, whatever. Straight bullets, who cares? Like, whatever. I got to shot 3 times. I'm dancing.
Yes. But, for my sake, and for Hollywood's sake, I hope they don't stop making John Wick movies. I have heard rumors that they may focus and do a movie or two on the Continental.
Yeah, there's a series greenlit on one of the channels already.
Yeah. So I find that would be very interesting, but I feel like this is really the only true action franchise that's still around, from and current. And I don't want it to end. And because the storyline, there's not much of a story. He's out for revenge, basically. But it really feels like, the Clint Eastwood movies with Sergio Leone.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few, Keanu Reeves has probably less than 15 lines in the entire movie. At least what it feels like.
Yeah. It's like that movie Soldier with Kurt Russell in the same movie. He must say a total of 50 words, if that, in the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think Keanu Reeves is probably in on the whole. It's kind of a joke in a way that I think there's a reason why he has so few lines. And I think he plays off of it. Kind of like, I think at this point, like with Nicolas Cage playing Dracula, I think
that's going to be great.
Which I can't wait to see Renfield. But I think they both recognize.
Normally, I don't like those movies, but this movie looks so over the top, and I love Nicolas Cage, so I'm just ready to turn my brain off and have fun. I don't want to think about
now.
Dracula's real or not?
Now, where in as far as rating the movie on a scale of, I don't know, you want to say 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever. Where would you place it, A, and where would you place it in the rank it amongst the other John Wick movies?
I give it a 9.5. I think it's tied with the first movie, in my opinion. The other two, a lot of people didn't like the second movie. A lot of people didn't like the third movie. I like them all. Um, I was surprised. I wanted to see Halle Berry in this movie. I thought part of the plot was he's going to rescue, because they're not going to just let her do that. I mean, they're going to kill Sharon like they did. I know they're going to kill her
Yeah.
daughter. It's like, I don't know. I really liked them. How about you?
Yeah, I loved it. I would probably I am kind of partial to the first one in the sense that I didn't know what to expect, and there is probably a little bit more of a story there. And so the first one was, I wouldn't say new, but it was such a surprise when the first one was marketed and it came out. I remember seeing the trailer and going, "Oh, this just looks like a generic action movie." I was like, "Whatever."
You
And
remember,
then it wasn't till the second one came out,
I
and
answered the shit out of you.
you told me, you're like, "You got to see John Wick." I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "That looks like just a average action movie." And then I saw it and I was like, "Okay, you're right." I was blown away. The fact that there's a beagle pup in the movie tugs at my heartstrings, as I used to have a beagle dog, as you're very well familiar with. And yeah, I was just not expecting any of the action. And even in the trailers for John Wick 4, they don't show a lot of the action
No,
either.
they don't.
So they don't really market it that way. And I think they could have, that probably hurt it at, from a box office standpoint. But I can tell you, the audience that I saw it with, I mean, and you and I saw the third one together. I remember people cheering out loud, which is why I wanted to go
Yes.
opening night. And people were laughing and cheering last night and having a good time. And I
Well,
was turning around looking at other people's faces. And I mean, everybody, when John Wick he kills 300 people in a in a building with that shotgun, or those exploding shells. I mean, everybody is just, you know, they're like at an AC/DC concert, and they got their arms and their fists in the air. So
like that what brought the house down for us is when the dog, there was this, I can't tell if he's Italian or if he's Spanish from Spain. I think he's Italian, and he's pestering Wick the whole movie. He's a little arrogant, pompous ass. And finally, there's a black guy in the movie who I actually liked him, and he has this dog. And when he knocks the guy out at the end, this is on the guy's face.
oh, I don't think, yes, exactly. Oh, everybody cheered at that.
That was
Everybody.
great.
I thought that guy was Russian.
No, he's no, because he's speaking Italian, or he spoke, no, he's Italian or Spanish from
Okay.
Spain. No.
I just assumed he was Russian
We're gonna
because
help
that
them
seems to be about, in the first one he fights the Russians.
because that's the what's his face is, he makes peace with that family at the beginning of the second movie.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
it feels like there are always Russians everywhere in the John
I think
Wick.
they got to remember there are Russians in Berlin. That's why he goes there and
Yes.
gets the crap kicked out of him. He takes it. He takes the beating, which is
Yeah.
that's what's good about him. He knows when he needs to take an ass whipping. He knows, okay, I'm gonna have to take an ass whipping here.
Yeah.